I just spent my first year as a free man after being wrongfully convicted and incarcerated for 23 years. IAmA. I'm Ricky Kidd. In 1997, I was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for double homicide, a crime I didn't commit. I couldn't afford a lawyer, and the public defender I was assigned didn't have time or the resources to prove my innocence. I spent 23 years behind bars trying to prove the things my public defender should have found in the first place. In August of 2019, a judge ruled that I was innocent and released me. After I got out, I started IAmA Resilience, an organization that raises awareness about those who have been wrongly convicted. Last month, I got married and, in December, we're expecting a baby daughter. And I'm Sean O'Brien, a law professor at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. With the help of UMKC clinical students and my co-counsel, Cindy Dodge, I represented Ricky for more than a decade and eventually got him released last year. I've spent decades working to overturn wrongful convictions, especially for inmates on death row. Before that, I was the chief public defender in Kansas City, Missouri, from 1985 through 1989. Ricky's story and how it illustrates the greater crisis in America's public defender systems was the subject of a PBS NewsHour podcast called Broken Justice, released last year. In October, about a year after Ricky was released, producer Frank Carlson checked in with him for a special episode. Subscribe, download and leave a comment wherever you get your podcasts. Proof. Undefined. Ricky. I'm happy that we had this time. It is always fun to be with the PBS NewsHour team, along with the one individual who first believed in me, who ultimately never left my side until I came home. A fun and exciting year it has been, and looking forward to the next chapter with IAmA Resilience/new baby/marriage/purposed living. Feel free to listen to Broken Justice if you haven't had a chance. And if you would like to support and participate in the next chapter forward for me, feel free to follow this link and share as much as possible. Sean. In closing, until we reform indigent defense systems, this story will play out over and over again. There are lots of ways to get involved, and lots of good people trying to change the system. Find out who is doing the work in your community, and support them. Sister Helen Prejean says if all you can do is bake a pie and bring it to a meeting. I'm happy to say Ricky's team was kept well fed by people who care. Have you been compensated by the state for wrongful imprisonment? Sean. Ricky has not been compensated. He has a team of lawyers working on that. Barry Scheck has taken his case. So stay tuned. What is a realistic expectation of what compensation is possible for Ricky? Sean. What is realistic to expect for compensation? That's hard to answer. For most of my clients, the answer is zero because of the doctrine of governmental immunity. Clients either get nothing, or they get millions. Most get nothing. Did you tell the other inmates you were innocent? Did they believe you? When I was a kid, I lost recess for writing on someone's desk, and I didn't do it. I still think about that 25 years later. So I can't even begin to imagine your frustration. I'm glad to hear you're free. Damn. I just looked up this guy's story and he was straight up minding his own business, nowhere even close to the scene of the crime. This speep could happen to anybody. Ricky became the lead suspect in the case after an anonymous tip came in naming him as one of the killers. Evidence suggests this phone tip may have been called in by one of the actual perpetrators. Ricky had what should have been an airtight alibi for the crime. He was at the Jackson County Sheriff's Lake Jacamo office at the time of the murders. Filling out an application for a gun permit. It could have easily been somebody that really didn't like him and decided to say he was one of the killers. Just crazy to think that I could be doing my thing and then before I know it, I'm serving a life sentence and have no beeping clue what is going on. How dumb are the investigators? They had to know his alibi was legit and yet went by an anonymous tip. Either they're liars or they just didn't care and were willing to railroad an innocent person to get it over with. Very disturbing. More should be done to punish crooked cops and investigators so this doesn't happen again. It gets worse. Ricky was tried jointly with Merrill, who later confessed to being a real perpetrator in the crime, along with the Goodspeeds. So not only did he have an alibi, the other guy said he didn't do it. Do you hold any hatred/resentment toward the public defender that was unable to help you? Or have you put all that behind you? Ricky. Good question. At first, I did. Many years ago I did. Then I didn't. And now I do again. It's complicated. Congratulations on your release, and I'm sorry you had to go through that unimaginable experience. Hopefully you're okay with a personal question. Based on the timeline, it sounds like you got together with your now wife immediately after getting released. So how did you two meet? Or had the relationship already started to form while you were incarcerated? Congratulations again on the freedom, and I wish you and your new family all the happiness in the world. Ricky. This is a perfect IAmA question. Ask me anything. I actually met my wife in January of this year and the magic was there but initially ignored. We were working together for a period of time until the magic could no longer be ignored. After that, the rest was history. We got in a NASCAR and raced around the track. What is the biggest misconception about prison? Sean. That it rehabilitates. Ricky. That's easy. The biggest misconception is that most of society believes that everybody is guilty, when that simply is not the case by far. Another misconception is that everybody is ruthless and violent, and that is also not the case. Can you tell us more about what discovery led to your release and why it wasn't presented in the original trial? Sean. It was an accumulation of facts. Surprisingly, a confession by the real killer was not enough. An admission by the only eyewitness that he lied when he identified Ricky was not enough. It was finally the evidence of a deposition taken by Ricky's co-defendant of the real killers, the co-defendant's alibi witnesses, that had been hidden from Ricky's trial attorney. That evidence gave us a valid legal claim. Innocence by itself is not enough. Believe it or not. What an absolute nightmare. Did you learn any new skills, good or bad, whilst you were inside? Ricky. A nightmare indeed. As for the new skills that I learned, patience would be at the top of that list. But I also learned basic computer skills. I also learned office skills in the job that I was placed in. I became a certified dog trainer. Aside from any job assignment, I also read over 1,000 books over the course of those 23 years that have helped me adjust better than some of my other exoneree friends. Did you ever give up on life when you realized that you maybe was gonna die in prison, or did you always kept hope even after a decade and more behind bars? Ricky. A mix of both. Out front and publicly, I kept a strong face. But at times, throughout the 23 years, I certainly was ready to give up and call it quits. I honestly believe in the fact that because my legal team did not give up on me, it made me ultimately not give up on myself. Do you think your time in prison has changed your personality? Do you feel like a totally different person now? Ricky. Yes. Yes and yes. Prison did change my personality. I took life for granted in my youth. Being wrongfully convicted caused me to sober up real quickly. Today I appreciate not just the big things in life but the little things as well. And always encourage others to do as well without having to lose their freedom. What do you think is the biggest misconception about someone returning to the world after such large time away? Ricky. I'm not sure what the biggest misconception is. But I can tell you what the biggest hurdle is. Returning to the world after such a long time away. Sean. Boy. There are so many hurdles. Everybody wants to pick up right where they left off. And so many years have passed that is virtually impossible to do. And so I have clients who look back and all they can see is what they lost. And I have clients who look forward and marvel at the everyday life around them. The beautiful things in their future. And I don't know how to help someone be someone who looks forward. That's the hardest part. It's been a beautiful thing to watch Ricky hit the ground running. But I have other clients who struggle every day. There's also a difference in X and Airs based on their experience inside prison. And the people who have the hardest time adjusting are those who were on death row. I have one who came within minutes of execution and was exposed to the danger of execution constantly in his last 18 months in prison before we were able to free him. And he is literally disabled by his post-trauma stress disorder. And so that's hard. Ricky has taken Joe Amreen out to get groceries. I pay for his cell phone so he can at least have that BC. He lives on the back porch of his sister's house. And if it weren't for the kindness of strangers he'd have a hard time even surviving.